I wasn't planning on getting upset during this video. And trust me, you don't want me upset. In Dante Alighieri's Inferno, the ninth circle of hell, the deepest and furthest point from the divine, is not full of fire. It is a vast frozen lake, and it is frozen because it exists at the maximum possible distance from the warmth of God's love. The toughest hells are not the ones that burn. They are the ones where no one is there to share your burdens with you. They are the ones where you call out for help and the only thing that answers is the building itself. Through the creak of a radiator or the whine of a rusted pipe, or through the hum of a boiler that, if you've been alone for long enough, starts to sound a lot like a warm, familiar voice. This is the sound of a girl learning to love the silence, because the silence is the only thing she can always rely on. Every time I read or hear about somebody describing the Blackcoats Daughter as a slow burn possession movie, I automatically think you weren't paying enough attention. Which is fine. It's actually better than fine, because if everybody suddenly started paying attention to everything around here, I might end up losing some of the dozens of views I'm currently getting. Unlike the Evil Dead franchise I covered in the last video, this is not about somebody being invaded by some malevolent, intrusive, demonic force. This is about a girl who chooses to perform a radical and horrifying act of self-surgery. She essentially extracts her own loneliness by amputating everything around it, from her body to her name to ultimately her entire future. The demon that comes for Kat is not an invader. It's a prosthetic family made up of flames, offered to a girl whose flesh and blood family just forgot to show up. Again. In big picture terms, this movie explores the terrors of feeling unchosen or rejected by the very people who are supposed to make you feel held for the rest of your life. If you view the film's landscape through the lens I'm offering, the Bramford School isn't a setting at all. It's more of a theological statement. Try thinking of it like a dead church. The uniforms are habits, the halls are cloisters, the boiler in the basement is the underworld entity's beating heart, and it's the only source of warmth in the entire building. The girls congregate in the dining hall not to pray, but to eat, and the constant silence between them is not a peace, it's a type of covenant. Perkins set this film in February, which is of course deep winter, but this is not the winter that comes before spring. This winter has swallowed spring whole. The ground outside is frozen as hard as steel, all the trees are skeletal, and the sky is dull white and heavy. This is the landscape of the Forsaken. It is the permanent February of a young soul who's been forced to stop expecting warmth from any source other than herself. This is the ninth circle of hell. Some people assume Kat's demise begins in front of the boiler, but before that courtship begins in earnest, there is a moment at the dinner table that is almost impossible to catch. She is setting her place at the table, and she sets down a soup spoon. And then a low, reversed sound, which is metallic and inverted and just plain wrong, rises up, and then it stops. The instant Kat looks down. We are watching her watch her own reflection, but the spoon is concaved. That means the image is inverted, or the wrong way around, or for our purposes, upside down. And the sound that accompanies it is the sonic signature of reversal, or of the demonic. It's the sound of something moving backward through the forwards flow of time. And what does she see? She sees herself, but not herself. At this point in the story, we aren't aware of any dark entities yet, but the dark entity has already found Kat. The spoon is metal. The boiler is metal. The pipes that run through the school like a nervous system are also metal. And so, that means Kat is holding a kind of terminal, and the reverse sound effect suggests someone or something has just looked back at her. This is the moment her communion begins. It does not start in the boiler room with her bowing ritual. It actually starts right here at the dinner table with simple cutlery. And if you watch very closely, instead of flinching at the sight of her own inverted face, Kat's shoulders come back ever so slightly, and she straightens the spoon. Why? It's a sign of respect. And her next words, "Dear Lord, thank you for this food you have placed in front of us on this night," are not, for Jesus.
When they are left alone in the school that night, Rose heads out to meet her boyfriend, and she instructs Kat in no uncertain terms to stay out of her room and to not touch her shit before she leaves. But the instant Rose is gone, Kat defies Rose's orders. The first thing she picks up is Rose's hairbrush, and there is hair in it. Long, brown, lovely strands of hair, and they are the physical essence of a girl who is wanted, a girl who has a boyfriend, a girl who has someone waiting for her. Kat is not motivated by curiosity in this scene. This is an acquisition. Kat has spent the entire film waiting for phone calls and waiting for cars to arrive and waiting for someone, anyone, to choose her. But here, for the first time, she does not wait. She crosses the threshold, she takes something intimate, and she holds the physical evidence of Rose's desirability in her hands.
As I'll assume a few of you already know, based on some of the emails I get from you each week, within certain occult traditions, human hair is a tag lock or a type of conduit. It's a way to target a spell at a specific person. Kat's not just invading Rose's privacy, she's literally taking her. This is the first token from the above-ground world that she is planning to offer to the thing down below.
And the instant she picks up the brush, the phone down the hall rings a single time. And then we cut to black. The Dark Communion has been forged.
At this point in the story, the demon hasn't spoken directly to Kat yet, but the girl that will eventually listen to the demon is already here. That passive kid who sat alone singing on the stage earlier is gone, and the girl who picked up Rose's hairbrush is somebody else entirely.
She is someone who takes things and crosses thresholds. She's someone who's decided, probably without knowing it yet, that if the above-ground world won't let her live here, she'll find a home down below, and she has no intention of showing up empty-handed. This new girl didn't just arrive after striking some mystical minor chord on her piano. She has appeared gradually. In the opening scene, the school chaplain, another father figure, and as Perkins is presenting him to us, a stand-in for the literal Heavenly Father, doesn't see her as a priority and abandons her by missing her recital. And while she's playing, a brief cutaway to 2 empty seats confirms her parents have abandoned her too. She sings In the Garden. It's an old Christian hymn about intimacy with the divine, and the lyrics, if you listen to them through the filter I'm hearing them through, are a love song to a voice only she can hear.
This sound of divine love has been hammered into Kat's head her entire life. She's been conditioned by all of the hymns and all of the chapel services and all of the crucifixes on the wall to recognize the voice of God and to wait for it and to eventually long for it. But she has not been trained to distinguish it from anything else.
And this is where we get a bit nerdy, because St. John of the Cross enters the conversation. He was a 16th century Spanish mystic. He wrote Dark Night of the Soul in the darkness of a prison cell, and he gave us this quote: "The soul must pass through the dark night of the senses and the spirit to reach union with the divine, and in this darkness it is stripped of all that is not God."
St. John knew the silence of God intimately, and he called it holy. And his experience taught him the soul had to be stripped of every comfort and every attachment and every human warmth in order to become a vessel for the divine. And St. John believed in that silence, in that state of forsakenness, God will come to you. And yes, I can read. It also has pictures.
Osgood Perkins understands this theology, but he's asking us, what if the God who comes to you in your forsaken state, the divine that rushes into the vacuum of your abandonment and your loneliness and your heartbreak, happens to have horns? What if it isn't bathed in light, but engulfed in flames instead?
And the answer to that question is lurking in the basement.
When the boiler talks to Kat, it's speaking in a language she already understands because she learned it in church. And the voice in the furnace is promising her the same thing the hymn does: a walk, a conversation, and simple belonging. Her parents never told her that. The chaplain never told her that. No one with flesh and blood ever told her that. But the voice from the basement and the voice on the payphone tells her she belongs to it. And she believes it because she's been rehearsing this moment her entire life. Watch her posture during this scene, and if you've ever wondered how Osgood Perkins got it so creepy looking, he filmed it backwards. She is not supplicating herself to a master. She is kneeling down in devotion. She's singing to the boiler the way a bride sings to her betrothed. This is the first and only time in the entire film we see her without the tremble of the cold and without that blank, devastating stare. The furnace isn't just warming the room, it is warming her wound.
That boiler is this movie's altar. It's like a mouth into the underworld, with one important distinction. Kat is not being dragged towards it. She is walking towards it. And she's walking towards it because she has been pushed towards it her entire life.
Every unanswered phone call, and every car that never comes up the driveway, and every pair of empty seats at her recitals, each of those moments was a step towards this furnace, and towards this voice that told her,
I am not going to leave you.
During the opening scene, the headmaster, in trying to simply resolve the logistics of an abandoned girl, says to her,
After all, we can't let you live here.
Now, he means it practically because the school is closing for a week, but she hears the words very differently. The human world, the institutions, the flesh and blood authorities, they've all just told Kat she can't stay here. She can't belong. And so, she goes downstairs, and the voice from the furnace tells her the exact opposite.
You can stay here with me.
In one fell swoop, that demon offered her literally everything the church and the school and her parents and anyone else who was meant to make this young girl feel protected just explicitly denied her.
She called her parents and they didn't answer, so she called something else, and something else did answer. Possession narratives traditionally frame the demonic as a violation or a theft of your agency, but the Blackcoats Daughter does something way more disturbing. It frames possession as consent. Kat's not being overpowered, she's being courted, and for the first time in her life, she is being chosen.
And in a world that has offered this young girl nothing but silence and rejection, finally being chosen, even by something with claws, would feel completely indistinguishable from real love. And if you're able to view this demon through the metaphorical lens I am presenting, we've all been there.
Contrary to popular belief, this movie is not a cautionary tale about the dangers of the occult. This is a psychological autopsy of a girl who was so starved of connection, she learned to digest poison and call it nourishment just to survive, the way we've all done at times in our own lives. And Perkins makes this concept literal right here.
Rejoice, everyone. We have reached the point in the review where I push things too far. To pull this one off, we're going to have to get a little bit nerdy. Trust me, it'll be worth it. Go. This is Gian Lorenzo Bernini's The Ecstasy of Saint Teresa, the marble saint caught mid-swoon. The angel's spear is poised and her face is suspended in an expression that has been debated for centuries. Is that agony or rapture? Is it pleasure or pain? And this is our tragic anti-hero Kat at the exact moment he first speaks to her. Her eyes water just a bit and her eyelids take on a bit of heaviness while her mouth opens just slightly. Look at those two faces.
Saint Teresa of Avila, a 16th century Carmelite nun. She wrote of a vision in which an angel pierced her heart repeatedly with a golden spear, leaving her all on fire with a great love of God. The pain was so intense that she moaned, but it was also so sweet that she never wanted it to end. She called this a spiritual marriage. And Kat, a possessed girl, a girl who has done something unspeakable in the name of a voice that promised to never leave her. Look at her expression. It's the same ambiguous swoon, the same surrender, the same unbearable, ecstatic agony of being finally and completely loved. The history of mysticism is filled with stories like Teresa's. Souls so in love with the divine that physical suffering became irrelevant. Bodies levitated and hearts burned and wounds appeared on hands and feet spontaneously bleeding because the soul's identification with the beloved was so total that the flesh simply agreed.
The church calls this imitatio Christi, or the imitation of Christ, and it is considered to be the ultimate act of love. And it's about taking the suffering of the beloved into your own body in order to make your body a testament to the one who chose you. And this is exactly what Kat does. She takes the demon into her body, but not in defeat. It's as consumption. She becomes the bride of the boiler.
And the unbearable part, the part that gives this film its peculiar tone, is that Perkins isn't judging her. He sees a girl who chose hell over loneliness. He says, in the voice of every abandoned girl who has ever cried themselves to sleep on their pillow, "I see why you did it."
This is why I love Perkins. This movie's not just another shallow virtue-signaling morality party. It's a radical act of empathy for Kat and for anybody who's ever felt abandoned. Guess what? We're gonna nerd out again.
If by chance you went through the same childhood Greek mythology fascination phase I did, you will know the name Persephone. She was the maiden taken by Hades to the underworld. She was torn away from flowers and sunlight and made the queen of the dead. The common version of this famous myth is that Persephone was a victim. She was kidnapped and tricked with pomegranate seeds. Then she was rescued, at least partially, by her mother, Demeter. And her mother's love was so fierce it bent the rules of the cosmos. This myth, at its core, is about a mother who simply refused to let her daughter go.
The Blackcoats Daughter is what happens when there is no Demeter, when there's nobody coming to bring you back, when there's no mother and father to watch you play piano, and the phone's left just to ring and ring and ring. See what I did there? That's a payphone in a Gothic mansion. That doesn't even make any sense. You didn't like... I wasn't planning on getting upset during this video. And trust me, you don't want me upset.
And so, this movie is asking, what if Persephone walked? What if Hades was the first being in her existence who looked at her and said, "You belong here, with me, forever"? What if the underworld felt less like a prison and more like a homecoming?
Kat is a Persephone that was not kidnapped. She stood at the edge of the abyss, took one last look over her shoulder at a world that had never once made her feel necessary, and she stepped forward.
The demon didn't drag her down, it just opened the door for her and she walked through it herself, smiling and feeling chosen. We don't measure this movie's effectiveness in jump scares or gore. Although there is plenty of the latter, we measure it by how deeply it opens Kat's wounds, and by extension, our own wounds.
And if that silence goes unanswered for long enough, it'll fester into a wound. And a wound left untreated will eventually welcome anything that promises to heal it. Or anyone who promises to stay.
The Blackcoats Daughter is not trying to comfort you. It doesn't offer you up a resolution. It doesn't end with a priest and a crucifix and a girl restored to her innocence. It ends with a girl who got exactly what she wanted. And the horror of that, the real, true, lasting, soul-destroying horror, isn't that she was tricked into it. It's that she wasn't.
To me, the allegorical potency of this story is devastating. It forces us to re-examine the concept of evil and some of the motivations behind evil acts. The story also makes us think about what we would give in order to feel chosen, and it refuses to look away or to flinch when the answer is literally everything. So, I'm going to leave you with this. When you have felt most alone, or most rejected, or most heartbroken, or most forsaken, has a voice from the dark ever spoken to you? Maybe in the form of somebody that has already proved they are not worth your time, or somebody who never shows up when you need them to? If so, what did they say? And what would you have given to hear that voice one last time just to get you through that dark moment? As always, thank you very much for watching my dumb little video. And until next time, folks.